How's it, everybody? Welcome to the recap series. Over the next few weeks, the Tots and I will be hard at work remembering all the fun and exciting things we got up to back in the day, and we figured it would be a great idea to record all of us struggling to remember every leg of the adventure. There's no real guidelines to these, and everybody's going to put their own little flourish on it, so do feel free to check out everybody's perspectives, as we're all going to remember things a little bit differently. So there's going to be one of these recaps for each of the players, and then one from me as well as we prepare for our official return to the Laris region. So please enjoy the struggles and the chaos of these, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Ben, aka Bentley Woods, and I'm going to be doing the recap of, I guess we'll call it Season 1 of the Tots campaign, because it had to be ended because of this pandemic that we're living through that has given me quite a substantial amount more hair. I hope everybody is staying safe, wear your masks, social distance, all that good stuff. Before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has watched this series and the other series, and everybody who's hanging out in the Discord, and even the people who maybe are just lurking on YouTube and watching and liking our videos. Feel free to leave a comment. I love reading them, seeing your thoughts, but if that's your thing, I tend to lurk on YouTube videos as well, so no big deal there. All right, so getting started, I'm not going to have any assistance here. As you can see, I'm in this green void, so I'm not going to have a guide, so bear with me. I also realized I don't have notes for the first 3-4 sessions-ish, so that's going to be interesting. Session 1, leaving home. We left home. No, what if I just left it at that? No, so we left me and Milo's hometown of Ambercrag and did some initial exploring on the first route. Phoebe had a chef's hat. I don't remember why that she had a chef's hat. I don't remember. But anyway, she had a chef's hat, and a Centret stole it. He wanted to check out the hat, and so he had it. She and I believe Mortar too battled the Centret. Nubster knocked it out with an ice shard, if I remember correctly, and she caught William, our favorite little steely hat boy, who now collects things in his hat that we rarely check, so who knows what's in there now. Also, Milo caught Violet after a pretty heated battle, if I remember correctly, with Monty, his Murkrow buddy. So we had 2 team member additions in session 1, I think it was. Not too shabby. Then we met Daniel, Lyle, and Jess, the little family that were on that route. They were outside of Oriander because they were having their festival that they didn't seem too keen on being around for, so they were out camping in the woods for reasons. Lyle is probably still in my top 3 favorite NPCs we've ever had. Bentley got to battle his bug Pokemon. That was a lot of fun, and they were nice enough to let us hang out, and I think that's basically all that I remember from session 1. So moving on, session 2, stretching our wings. I believe we woke up and the family was still sleeping, if I remember correctly. I think we might have left them notes to say that we were heading out, or at least for Daniel. But anyway, we hit the road, continued forth towards Oriander, and at a certain point found what we thought was a wild Apom. So I was like, I want that, and battled it with Mortar. It was another really tough, heated fight, but Mortar pulled through in the end, and this was the first Pokemon that I attempted to catch. Failed in doing so because the Apom champ belongs to Stetson Farms, and this was the first time that we encountered the Dominus device, which was strapped to Champ. And that kind of raised our hackles a little bit to what this farm is all about. Like, why do they have essentially indentured servant Pokemon that are kind of free range, but also have this device? It was truly bizarre. Anyway, beyond that, I think Phoebe might have had a battle somewhere in there, but we ended up camping for the night off the road into like a little clearing in the forest. And on Milo's watch, he heard like the skittering of insect feet, woke up the rest of us to discover that we were surrounded by quite a few Spinarak that didn't seem like they were hostile. They were just kind of hanging out off the beaten path, away from our lit fire and camp, but it was still pretty creepy. Milo, I think, apologized for waking everybody up, kind of a false alarm deal. And then when we went back to our tents, Phoebe got bit, and it was bad, by an Ariados. And that was, I think, the first natural one of our entire campaign. I'm probably wrong, but the first one of major consequence, as she was bitten by a giant spider. So that was how session 2 ended, and to this moment, probably one of the better cliffhangers that Drew has been able to pull off, probably through the dice, I guess you would say. But yeah, that was scary times. So we went into session 3, a Venomous Exchange, well named, starting off the session without Phoebe, as she was incapacitated from this giant spider bite. So we had to fight off this gang of spiders and this giant Ariados, which we did pretty well. As far as I remember, we had hashtag critical stick from William, just taking a nice juicy stick, firing it javelin style into the Ariados. That's one of my favorite images of this campaign, is little William with his hat just firing a stick spear at a giant spider that's probably like 4 or 5 times his size, who can say? Outside of that, though, I think after we beat off after we dispatched the group of spiders, we collected Phoebe and managed to get her into Oriander, where we met Ansem, the eccentric scientist, doctor, shaman man, another one of my favorite NPCs. I love Ansem. He was quite a trip. But he gave us we'll say, gentle scolding for trying to heal her wound by mushing berries into it, which apparently is not something that you should do. So he said that we need education, and I tend to agree even now. But anyway, Phoebe was in dire straits, but we got her to medical attention and got her healed up, which, thank God for that. It would have been pretty sad if we lost a player character on session 3 of the new campaign. Didn't happen, but probably could have if Drew was a little bit more devious than he already is, and we all know how devious that our lovely DM is. I don't really remember anything else that we did that session other than saving Phoebe, meeting Ansem, kind of picking his brain a little bit. But that'll lead me into session 4, Will Battle for Money, which pretty much just how it sounds. We got into a bunch of different training battles around town in Oriander. This is where my notes, I think, come in a little bit. So I think we got to explore Stetson Farms as well. Again, people were kind of sketched out about it, but Merle, who works on Stetson Farms, seems to be a nice enough dude. He gave Phoebe a citrus berry, I believe, told them to come back for a tour the following day because they don't give tours unannounced, as he said. went back to town, and that's when we started doing our battles. Bentley battled Charlie and Dyke the Snubble. That was a fun battle. Phoebe challenged Derek, which I wrote in my notes as the sweaty tryhard with greasy red hair, to a doubles match. It says William got knocked out in one hit. That tracks, I guess. This was Slurgme and Togerpie, or Slurgma and Togerpie. My apologies. That was quite fun. One of the first meme names of the campaign. Nubster held his own against that duo after William got knocked out, but ultimately lost to Togepi. That I remember. And then after those first couple of battles, CJ wanted to get in on the action, challenge somebody who had this big duster trench coat thing, and that guy turned out to be a member of Team Rocket. Wanted to battle CJ for the rights to his Pokemon. It's like, yeah, we're not doing that. And he was like, you don't have a choice, my dude. So we started off this battle against these Team Rocket members, and I think this was where Crash might have bitten the dude's leg off, I think. In any case, that did happen. I remember that. Crash bit off this Rocket Grunt's kneecap, essentially, and his Crobat picked him up and flew him away to safety. At the same time, I believe this was the first time that Wild Bill showed up. So Wild Bill and his Tauros Richter came riding in to save our bacon, knocked out the Noctowl, and by knocked out I mean speared and gored with one of its giant horns. That was epic. This is where the campaign really just went off the rails, because we were like, oh, it's not anime Pokemon. This is like life or death Pokemon. This is terrifying. And then another trainer with an Arbok showed up, and I think he had like a Bane mask. And he was challenging us to yet another battle after we dispatched the Grunt in really gross ways, biting off his knee. Thanks, Crash. But yeah, we had a Mitch there of Mitch and Terry fame, who was like, I don't know what we're gonna do here. And then we went to session 5, Not You Natu, which I was not around for, so you'll have to forgive me for not remembering what happened. But I think they attempted to battle this Arbok Team Rocket character. I don't know that anyone on the team really engaged so much as Wild Bill and Mitch did, but ipso facto they were able to dispatch that Team Rocket guy, or he was able to flee how he wanted to, avoid any more damage to them. Didn't want to face Crash, that I can understand. But yeah, I was not around for this episode. I'm gonna guess that this was where Tegan and Phoebe went on their Stetson Farms tour. So I think at the tour, this is where Tegan first spotted the Natu on the top of Stetson Farms that was just kind of hanging out, chilling, watching them, and this was suspicious to Tegan. She's like, this thing, I don't like this place, I don't like this Pokemon, it seems like it's watching us, we need to keep that in mind moving forward. And she did, because she did not like that Natu one bit. Session 5.5, which I don't know if anybody even knows really exists. It kind of just fell into the ether, but Drew was nice enough to give me a little side session when I returned prior to session 6, where we kind of, I think Bentley woke up the following morning after the battle and got to do some training. Battled, I forget the dude's name, but he had the Magnemite that did the arm workout. That was fun. Battled that guy and met Gil with the Machop. Gil was an interesting character. Machop was either all or nothing. Crits or just not getting knocked out immediately. But yeah, that was pretty much Bentley's morning. He just did some battles, won some money, bet on Gil to win his battle. Oh, Cassius the Gaseous, I believe, made an appearance, the coughing, and his trainer. That was fun. So yeah, just a chill little side session for myself after I missed session 5, which was a good time getting to get some reps in for some training with Mortar. It was fun times. Session 6, caught between a Mareep and a hard place. I don't think there's really anything, well, I can think of one thing that was important, but this would be the Mareep Battle of Death and Destruction that you all know so well. At this point, if you don't know, Joel in real life is a big Mareep fan. Not so much a fan of the evolutions where it loses its fluffy wool. It's really a shame that Ampharos just becomes a naked yellow half giraffe thing, sort of, I guess. But anyway, we saw a Mareep. Milo was like, I want to catch this. And we went after it, and it was an absolute beast. I think every time we made contact with it, static in Drew's universe functions in that it deals electric damage to you if you make physical contact, which was causing all sorts of problems for all sorts of Pokemon. I think Monty was knocked out. I think Violet was knocked out. Koa, Tegan's Rockruff, almost died because he was knocked out up on the mountain cliff face that the Mareep made us chase it on. And yeah, that was bad. So CJ had to send Bang. So I guess I missed Bang being caught. So maybe that was beginning of this session? 6? Yeah, I guess it must have been because we left off on the next route. So that would have been when he discovered Bang fighting the Geodude and just chucking it aside into Crash, and then had a battle with Mankey, caught it, and then added his first team member. So he had Bang at this point, sent Bang up the cliffside to save Koa, bring Koa back down safely down the mountainside. And we kept going for this Mareep because we were in too deep. We had lost a lot of health, a lot of HP, and this was something that Milo wanted. We're like, hey, let's continue to fight this thing. We've knocked it out, we can get it. It was able to be knocked out and then recuperate its energy and continue fleeing. Ended up getting away. We lost just about everything. And this taught Milo the lesson that if he wants a Pokemon, he should just throw a Pokeball. Straight up. And I don't know that he's done that since, but maybe if we spot this Mareep again, it will be in the care of some devious trainer that is just going to destroy our souls with an epic Mareep. At the end of this session, when we were continuing to trek, totally dejected down this path, I found a horde, or saw, I guess. I don't know if found is the right word, although I did roll a natural 20 on the perception check to try and find some wild Pokemon. A horde of Janma, and one of which was the blue shiny version. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pick out that shiny. And Milo gave me the bright idea to hold up my raspberry, which Pokemon cannot resist, and also makes them easier to catch. So I offered Janma my berry. He flipped down onto my arm, ate the berry, and I just kind of booped him with a Pokeball and added Evinrude to my team. So that was pretty cool. Didn't even have to battle it, but added a shiny Janma, which in reality is one of my favorite shinies. Really cool. So yeah, that was my first team member 6 sessions in. So me and CJ, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm probably not, both added some new team members. That was cool. Session 7, Spud and Pops. What more needs to be said other than Spud and Pops? The 2 old-ish dudes, I guess, who were playing chess in the forest, and we were walking past. I was like, I kind of want to see where this goes. And they ended up having a battle. Spud and Pops, the Bellsprout and Oddish duo against the other guy's Electabuzz, which, 2v1. Bentley was like, are you cool with this guy? Because 2v1, not really fair. And he's like, no, I beat him all the time, 2v1. So it's fine. All right, so Bentley officiated that battle, and Joel and Jordan dominated. They played as Spud and Pops, the Bellsprout Oddish, against the Electabuzz, and I don't even think Electabuzz did net damage. Like, he got hits in, but then they recuperated with grassy terrain or like absorb or something, and ended up not taking any damage throughout that entire battle. Spud and Pops were basically, I'm very excited to hopefully see Spud and Pops in the future at some point. Probably on Victory Road or at the Elite Four at this point. That guy has got irrational confidence for days, but it's kind of warranted. Maybe he just needs Joel and Jordan puppeteering his Pokemon forevermore. But yeah, the Spud and Pops battle, that's really what stands out to me. This is another one that I don't have notes for, so I'm gonna just put it there, I guess. I think this is when we got to the next... Yeah, so this is where we are approaching Alluvia, which is the gigantic city of Drew's Laris region universe. I don't think it's the biggest city. I think Fola maybe gets that nod, but he can correct the record at some point if necessary. But yeah, Alluvia, the big city, which leads us into session 8. Let's see, I've got some notes on this one. First Rite of Learning, I think it was. Yeah, so this was where we found Inheritance Shipping, another shady company in this universe that we're not too sure about. I think later on, spoiler alert, we get a little bit more sure of what Inheritance Shipping is all about. It's kind of creepy, but anyway, session 8. So this was first Rite of Learning, where we met Carlia and Chatot. I love these NPCs. This is another favorite. I'm going to keep saying favorite NPCs because Drew is just so good at what he does. But having Carlia, who is mute, with a Chatot that talks on her behalf, or at least kind of sort of translates for her, that was a really cool way of doing it, I think. Just a really cool character. But anyway, we did some training in the Rite of Learning, where this is where Monty had his stint of learning either Whirlwind or Tailwind. It kind of was a little bit noodly. We weren't really sure at the moment like what exactly the move was that he was going to learn, but he did a lot of training on that. I had Mortar do some training with the Pikachus to learn Thunder Punch, or try to learn Thunder Punch with that giant generator. So he was using the generator to kind of power up his punches with electric typing. Not something that I was told I could do at any point, because Mortar at that juncture couldn't just create his own electricity, but that was kind of the idea I had, knowing that the gym was going to be flying type. Was, all right, how am I going to get through this with a bug and Mortar, who can just hit things neutrally? So I was thinking kind of galaxy brain trainer mindset of Bentley's going to be the champion. He knows these types of things, and he's going to give himself an advantage if he can. Ended up not, because he didn't have that for the gym battle, but I thought that was a solid strategy. William was playing catch with Nubster's ice shards. That was their training. And we met Mayor Deacon Halsey, one of the most eccentric characters outside of Ansem, I would say. Green 3-piece suit, orange hair, mayor of Alluvia. And is he just kind of a aloof weirdo who doesn't really know what's going on, or is he just portraying that as a facade that absolves him of all of this wrongdoing that appears to be going on in Alluvia? I don't know that we really know that. We also met Xavier, our resident conspiracy theorist, who actually believes conspiracy theories that are maybe true. Who knew? It's the OJ is actually a murderer of conspiracy theories, is Xavier, the creepy homeless guy who's just kind of a vagrant and getting in trouble with the police and spouting his nonsense, which we find out later is not actually nonsense. Also met Officer David in the town. He was, at least to us, a nice police officer. Turned out not to be much of an asset or an ally thereafter, but yeah, mostly it was just the training in the Rite of Learning, so far as I remember, and so far as I wrote down. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, so this was when we got into gym battles. I'm just gonna recap my own, because, I mean, I watched everybody's, but I'm not gonna be able to remember what everybody was able to accomplish or not. But it was Evinrude and Mortar taking on the gym, and they did a fantastic job on the early trainers. And against Carlia, the decision was made to take on Noctowl and Skarmory, which nobody else did. But Bentley was like, you know what? If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And Skarmory seems to be your ringer, so let's do it. And that was an epic match. I think it really came down to the final blow after we knocked out Noctowl. It was Evinrude and Mortar against Skarmory. And I remember Mortar kind of defending Evinrude from his final fire punch blow to the Skarmory to knock it out. Got the Baron badge. This was probably my favorite gym that we have done. It was super cool. The element of having like a race, the race through the rings as a challenge. I really wish that the games would implement something more like that. But having Evinrude just zip through the rings and win was awesome. But then the races with everybody else's Pokemon was super cool too. I think Bang was picked for CJ, just flipping his way through the rings. And William for Phoebe, just zipping around. That was a cool mechanic of doing a gym, I thought. So yeah, Bentley, solid start. Got the Baron badge on the first go. It was a tough, hard-fought battle, but ended up getting that W. Pretty proud of that win. All right, next. Session 9, Don't Eat at Dino's or Ernie's. This was post-gym. We all got back together, did some exploring of Alluvia, not nearly as much as maybe Drew wanted us to, provided how massive this city is. But we met Dino, the diner owner who maybe kills Pokemon and feeds them to people, which we kind of have the understanding happens in the universe of Pokemon, but also it's pretty unsettling. I made the mistake of asking for Pokemon food, and what I meant was like food to give to your Pokemon to like get them better. And he took that as, oh yeah, we got Miltank steaks. Like, that's terrifying. I hate that a lot. And so we asked for a different restaurant to check out, and he said he didn't want to plug his competition, but to check out Ernie's. And it was a pizza joint / black market where he's kind of selling stuff out of the back of his pizza shop that maybe is not so kosher. One of my biggest regrets of the campaign was he offered us Pokeballs to buy and said, would you like them occupied or unoccupied? And we were all kind of like, what? You have occupied Pokeballs that you just sell? And I believe he claimed to have an Electabuzz. Should have just bought it. I regret it big time. I was too sketched out in the moment of Ernie to follow through on this purchase. Who knows what it would have been. Maybe I was buying like some trainer's Pokemon. I guess I could have been the nice guy and returned it at some point, but yeah, that's one of my big regrets, is not buying the occupied Pokeball with what he says was an Electabuzz. I wouldn't have been shocked if it was something different, but yeah, we went to the Bureau of Discovery, and I think this was where CJ kind of like went up to the security guards and was asking a question, aka too many questions, and they didn't like his presence there, so they very swiftly told him to get away from where he was standing. Bureau of Discovery was the private headquarters of the mayor. So again, circling back to Deacon Halsey, that guy is either not understanding what's going on in his own city or is just a shady character in his own right. I would not be surprised. We also learned that Xavier has a Mischievous. At least I wrote that down. That was post gym. My notes were pretty scarce in the early sessions. I think I got better at taking notes. But anyway, session 10, making a little buddy. This is where we took off on Route 104. And on the night's watch, CJ saw the Rapidash that was off in the distance that kind of made its way down into that very sketchy valley canyon area. Wanted to go after it. Probably used his better judgment for the first time, maybe, and last time in the campaign, and didn't. But yeah, saw a Rapidash on his night's watch. Bentley on his watch saw the Geodudes hanging out, trying to climb the cliffside, falling off, just generally being clumsy. I think we made the joke that I could drop a Pokeball down the side of the canyon like Plinko and try and catch a Geodude. Probably should have done that. That would have been cool, although I would have lost the Pokeball, so pros and cons there. But on the final watch, Milo saw a little mouse across the canyon. Flew over some jerky with Monty, I believe it was, to give the little buddy a little treat. And it ended up being a Cyndaquil. So he woke up the rest of the gang, said that he wanted to catch this thing, but it was a ways across this canyon. We're like, all right, well, we got to figure out how to cross the canyon. Found our way to a bridge, which Milo, in perhaps the bravest moment he has had in the campaign, just stormed it. Just went across, had to make rolls each time to make sure he didn't fall through, and made it all the way to the other side and to his little buddy. Nobody else wanted to cross this bridge, myself especially, so we were like, let's try and find a bridge that isn't so sketch that we're maybe going to die on. So we sent Evinrude one way, Violet another way, to try and find a better, more stable bridge. Evinrude came back, essentially gave word that he found another bridge someplace, and Violet did not return. So that was not good. Milo set off in the direction to try and find Violet. We set off in the direction to try and find a bridge to cross. And Milo ended up finding Violet in the maw of Bell, the Southern Belle Weepinbell that was trying to eat Violet. Violet got suckered in by that sweet, sweet scent and almost got ate. So that was the first battle he had with little buddy, the Cyndaquil, fighting off the Weepinbell along with... did they have Howl and Growl at this point? Maybe. Yeah, I think they did. So maybe that was episode prior, I think. Maybe? I don't know. At some point, there was howling in the distance that CJ went off to find, beat the living snot out of a gang of Houndour, and he and Milo both caught Howl and Growl. So I think he also had Howl at this point that he was also fighting the Weepinbell with, which made it a little easier. But yeah, knocked out this Weepinbell, or at least knocked Violet out of the Weepinbell, And in the meanwhile, the rest of the gang found another bridge, and this was the first sketchy encounter of Bentley's campaign. Tried to cross the bridge after Bang went first as the lighter and nimbler Pokemon, and Bentley tried to cross as the lightest human. Rolled a natural 1 because that's how I be, and broke through the board, smacked my head, knocked myself unconscious, nearly fell through. Bang saved my life, just stormed out onto the bridge, grabbed me with one arm as his tail, I'm sure, was gripping onto the bridge, made sure I didn't fall and die, because that would have been terrible on session 10. Yeah, that would have been rough. But anyway, he carried me across the rest of the bridge. The rest of the team was able to get across unscathed, but I was knocked out. Milo came back with a worse for wear Violet after the Weepinbell encounter, but I was told that I almost died, and I will be forever grateful to Bang for that. Next! Session 11. Titled The Lone Survivor. I titled it in my notes Teddy Discovery, which I think is better. Joel, come on, man. It's Teddy Discovery. Anyway, we continued on after the bridge hijinks that I'd rather forget. We went up and over a mountain into a more desert path with a tiny town off in the distance. We found a calcified Slugma and or Magcargo that seemed like it was just kind of stuck in its own ash. But I went and had Mortar heated up with his fiery arm, and it started to kind of come back to life, and we thought maybe this is not a battle that we want to fight right now, so we continued on into the desert, where we noticed a haboob coming. For those who don't know, haboob is like a term for a dust storm. We get a lot of them in Arizona. I remember driving down south there. It's just a wall of dust, and it's terrifying, and I could picture that one pretty well. So we were like, we need to get to shelter, making a camp. CJ, I remember, was absolute pro status with his survival checks, just putting together all the tents, making sure that everything was tied down nicely so that they wouldn't blow away. And on his watch, he met Pendleton, everybody's favorite Teddy Urza. I love Pendleton. What a guy. And he was surprised by his ability to just find and manifest honey, which, agreed. And in his Pendleton way, he kind of told CJ, this is not a safe place for you to be. That storm is going to be a lot more serious than your tents are going to be able to withstand. You need to get to cover. CJ comes and wakes up the gang. And then we head back towards the mountain to try and find a better place to find shelter. And we find what is Pendleton's little hovel, I guess. It was basically kind of like the start of a mine shaft, but not really. It was just kind of cut off, but an indoor place that we could ride out the storm. And in there, we found corpse number 1 of the campaign, and Jonathan Gilroy's journal in the discarded backpacks. So we learned about their expedition down into the canyon. Their crew of 6, I believe, were all injured or died. Jonathan Gilroy was injured, managed to make his way out of the canyon and back into this spot, but unfortunately perished. Wrote in his notes that in the canyon they discovered a new species, and I believe either in the moment or thereafter we kind of came to the conclusion that this was a mega Steelix, just a giant beast with a bunch of gears floating around. And we also found Emery McKinley, the second journal, her journal, and this would be Tegan's mother, I believe it was. And we made the executive decision not to read it and to return it to Tegan when we eventually found her. So yeah, this was kind of when the campaign really kicked off in earnest, with Drew weaving in a lot of the intense story bits of this expedition that went down into the canyon. They saw a new species of Pokemon. They all were killed or injured by it. We were all thankful that we decided to go over the canyon, not through the canyon at that point. And we also learned that Jonathan Gilroy was Pendleton's trainer. So one of the first real bummer moments of the campaign was not only meeting Pendleton, but finding out that his trainer, who he has been sticking with in this sad little cave, has died. It was a rough episode. We were able to convince Pendleton to travel with us, gained his trust, and I think that was basically it for that session. Just kind of trying to find cover in that dust storm with Pendleton, and then getting a lot more plot dumps from those journals and the corpse. But yeah, next on to session 12, Xantha the Ghost Town. I think that kind of says it all. We made it into the town of Xantha, real rundown, small adobe-style hut villages. They had I pictured it as like an old Western kind of saloon place that ended up being Javier Basa's Inn. That was like part bar, part motel, I guess you could say. And this was where we met Kaz for the first time, the evil Kadabra, who was, we found out later, puppeteering Javier Basa and going around the bar serving people drinks. Had essentially taken over the whole town to make it do his bidding. But yeah, we had a little talk with Javier. His voice was all messed up from his military career. We learned that Xantha was a military outpost. We learned that Jax was the gym leader there. We learned for the first time about the War of the Architects, which was, of course, the big war that happened, I believe, 30-ish years in our past, with the League of Psychic Pokemon led by the Prime Mind Alakazam. And after having a talk with Javier, where he kind of gave us all this exposition about the war and his background, Pendleton came up. Pendleton had decided not to enter the town for his own good, we learned later, but said that he would hang out outside when we were done exploring. Didn't make his way into the town, and that subject came up, and Javier's tune just shifted on a dime. He wanted to know where that bear was. We kind of got that he didn't want... he wanted to find Pendleton and bring him to his own form of justice, I guess. So we kind of came to the conclusion that he was going to try and kill Pendleton, and we needed to protect him. So we made our way up the stairs, kind of came up with a plan. CJ would hang out in one room where he could look out to make sure that Javier wasn't going after Pendleton, so we could follow him and protect Pendleton if needed. And that's where he met Spencer, the tall, lanky dude. Just a funny dude, a weird guy. Very pale, probably like 7'5", just an absolute beast of a dude. But CJ in that room was Spencer's. Spencer was like very cordial to someone who was basically trespassing, which was funny. But there ended up being ghosts in that room haunting the Hotel Motel, I guess. And it led CJ to a book on one of the shelves wherein he found Pendleton and the gang, a picture in one of the books of Pendleton and that group of explorers, including Tegan's parents. And this Ghastly ended up attacking CJ with a lick to the face, which essentially paralyzed half of his face, which was not what you want. So yeah, I think in this same episode, we battled the Ghastly in the halls of the motel. Milo tried to send Monty out for help. Help never came, which was a giant red flag to us. After we knocked out the Ghastly, it turned back into a person who was not living, which was strange, to say the least. This was the first inkling of the curse of Xantha, where essentially, be it cause or their own thing, the ghost Pokemon had been haunting and overtaking these entities, or people rather, in Boss's Inn and probably around the entire town. I accidentally lit Boss's Inn on fire with a makeshift Molotov cocktail, trying to attack Cause after we had defeated Ghastly, I think. I might be mixing metaphors here, but we battled the Ghastly, knocked the Ghastly out, and then I think we fought Cause in the like bar area after Javier had been seen going off to try and track down Pendleton. Accidentally lit the inn on fire. We managed to defeat Cause. All right, picking back up here. We had a battle with a Ghastly. We battled Cause. I don't know which sessions any of those happened in, but we battled both. We managed to fight off Cause. We went after Javier, and when we went outside, met what's his name? The geologist. I'm blanking. Arthur. Aha! Arthur, the geologist. And we met a now lucid Javier, who apologized profusely to the group of kids for putting them in danger. I'm blocking. I don't remember the order of really any of this, but starting over. So we beat the Ghastly, lit the inn on fire, escape, go after Javier, who's trying to track down Pendleton. We find Pendleton outside of the town in like a bush, giving us a signal. From there, we make our way into an abandoned building, which we now know as the old research station. This is now session 13. So these kind of all blend together in my memory, so I apologize. We get to the old research station. We find that there's like these computers and like different rooms with papers and filing cabinets and whatnot. Pendleton is in there with us. We play all of these recordings on the computer and find all of these weird experiments that have been going on in this former lab. Find out how Pendleton basically was a Manchurian candidate killer. When triggered, he just attacked and killed the 3 Kanto starters in this lab room. We learned more about Kaz, learned about Justice, the unfortunate Ponyta who was killed in one of these lab accidents. We learned a little bit about the scientist who was killed by the Mega Steelix, which he claimed was his own creation, that then escaped the lab. And I'm assuming that was kind of the end of all things in that research lab, but we learned a lot more about Pendleton's past and just this sketchy research medical center in Xantha. And then in session 14, that was where we found more expedition files, the McCoy dossier, and CJ fell through a hole in the wall that ended up being like a half tunnel. I don't know that it led all the way through or anything. I could be wrong. But no was scrawled on all the walls, which I think translated back to that research lab room where they were keeping Kaz, and he was scrawling the word no on the walls again and again and again. And this was where we were attacked by Session 14, Ghost from a Dark Past, the 3 Kanto starters in ghost form, which was super cool. Ended up battling them. The Bulbasaur grabbed Moana, the mini cow friend that Tegan picked up at Mitch and Terry's in Oriander. Forgot that tidbit. But they captured Moana, put it in the Bulbasaur bulb, and we just had to fight them off. We had to figure out that you had to attack, I believe it was the ghosts first. So once you knocked out the ghost, the skeleton part would cease to reanimate itself. Milo had the bright idea of grabbing the pieces of the bones so that they couldn't reanimate themselves, but we eventually figured out how to do that. Bentley tried to catch Ghost Squirtle to no avail, just went right through it. So we had an epic battle with those 3 ghosts in that room of no, which was super sketch. And then moved on to session 15, which was the Kaz battle. So I was very a kilter and off track here. So this is where Kaz finds his way to us in this abandoned research lab and asks us for Pendleton. This was after Bentley ran back to the makeshift PC that was there, was healing up his Pokemon, and Kaz is saying, "Give me the bear." Say, no, he's our friend, so that's not going to happen. We make a stand and fight against Kaz, which was absolutely terrifying. Bang got in some good hits. I think Mortar got in some good hits, and we were able to chase off Kaz in what was a pretty terrifying first showdown against this beastly Kadabra. But that was when we chased Kaz outside after he escaped. This was where we reconnoitered with Arthur, the geologist who knows Bentley's father, Jax, the gym leader, and Javier, who was puppeteered by Kaz, who is now lucid and able to apologize and kind of give the gang a little bit more of an inkling of what was happening, like not that he knew what was happening because he had lost his memory of, I think he said like the last few years, which is terrifying because that's how long Kaz was just kind of hanging out and controlling all of these ghosts. So we made our way to Arthur's house. He was nice enough to let us stay there. We met Ruby the Charmander, one of CJ's favorite NPC characters, who was the little chef cooking up some nice meals, some pancakes and such. And this was where Milo had one of his patented emotional moments with his Pokemon, taking them out back of Arthur's house, kind of sitting them all down and saying, like, look, this is not what I signed up for when I left on a Pokemon journey. Like, this is way more dangerous than I ever would have imagined. I can understand if you guys are not here for this. Like, if you want to go your own way and get away from the toxicity that is the Tots, I will understand. And no surprise, all of his Pokemon stood by him. They're like, we're in this to the end. We're in this with you. So a nice character development moment there where Milo had his Pokemon in a one-on-one situation with all of them and kind of taking stock of the moment, which up till that point we kind of hadn't done. We're just internalizing all this trauma. But session 16, the Ironbreaker Mines. So this was after we had a night in Arthur's after the cause battle and more exposition from Javier, learning a little bit more about him. We made our way into the Ironbreaker Mines, where the real goal was to have me catch a third Pokemon, because at this point, I believe everybody else had. So Phoebe had caught Shirley at this point, which unfortunately was cut off in that episode. Thank you, YouTube. But Phoebe had caught Shirley, the guys had Howl and Growl, and Bentley still just had Evinrude and Mortar. So the goal of the mines was to go in and try and find some charcoal, because we were told that certain items were in the mines that you could get to power up Pokemon. We were like, that would be super cool for not only Mortar, but also Howl and Growl. We had a lot of fire types, even maybe Little Buddy at this point could get in on that action. But yeah, we started to explore the mines. And oh yeah, we so we went in, and there's no light at all, and we get flashed, not with a chest, but with a blinding light of a Dunsparce that essentially blinded Milo and Evinrude. We were like, this is stupid, why are we doing this without light? Went back outside the cave entrance, of which there were several. I went back and bought a lantern, went back into the caves, lead the way with a lantern. A lot better D&D logic to just have materials and supplies. It's not that hard, you can just go and buy it. Why we didn't do that to start, I don't know. Yeah, made our way into the Ironbreaker Mines. We did some exploring. We found the sand shrews that were able to show us around, manipulating walls and opening up tunnels for us. That was super cool. I know Tegan was smitten with the sand shrews, but one, I think they were either brothers or good friends, and one of them was really wanting to stay in the mines, and the other wanted adventure and wanted to go with Tegan, at least from how I understood it. And Tegan didn't want to break them up, which is noble because they seem to be good buddies. But anyway, they led us through into their little tunnel area and their mini house. We found our way to a different tunnel where we found this obelisk of like a very dark stone. And this is where Mortar grabbed a piece of it and just couldn't let go. It was injecting him with, I'm assuming, enormous amounts of power. We had to pull Mortar away from it. He managed to break off a chunk of this stone, which we took from Mortar, who was acting psycho at this point, who was just seemed very angry and strong and roided out, I think was the term that we used. We took the piece of what we seemed to figure out was the source stone for fire, put it in like a mud casing thanks to Sandshrew, and then put it in a burlap sack for safekeeping. And I called back Mortar because he was not doing so well. It was bad news bears for him. Made our way through some more tunnels. We found BB the Tyrogue. Bentley wanted to see a battle between Bang and Tyrogue, the two fighting types, which did not disappoint. They're like flipping off of walls and doing kicks and punches and all sorts of crazy stuff. That was awesome. Phoebe ended up catching Boysenberry, BB, our little Tyrogue friend. So added another team member there. So session 17, Test of Skill. So this is where we left off from session 16, where we got into the minecart, where CJ and Bentley were kind of all about it. Milo was not, but for the good of having fun, grit his teeth and hopped into the minecart. We had, I think, CJ and Phoebe and Tegan at the time being dragged behind on like makeshift swine up skis, thanks to Nubster. And we rode the minecart down into the mines. And we found the Steelix that had killed the scientist who created him and probably the entire expedition team of Tegan's parents, which was sketch. So we had to do a test of skill, as the title of the episode says, where Drew had us do various tests based upon our efficiencies of while riding in the minecart to try and figure out how we were going to get out of this mess. I think little buddy sent a smoke screen back to try and distract the Steelix. We ended up riding the minecart down into various tunnels, lost the Steelix at some point, and Milo was none too happy about this. Said that we shouldn't do it. We did it. It was extremely dangerous. He was right. Yeah, it was intense. There was a lot going on. I remember at one point we had William pluck a loose stone out of one of the tires so that we were able to brake. I think we pulled the brake and it broke, which was not good. So yeah, it was bad news bears, but we survived. We made it through. Fun little Easter egg. This is where we did like a split session for a time. We did a session where, I mean, Joel, you can cut this if you want, but we did a session where it was broken up into myself, Joel, and Tia in a different tunnel from CJ Tegan, and had various different adventures, but those were lost to the ether. So maybe at some point we'll see those. But anyway, next on to session 18, Claw and Order. I would say one of my favorite episodes, because this is when I caught Nipsey in this weird, dilapidated old courthouse, like just with a strange building. Anyway, we split the group. Bentley and CJ made their way into this dilapidated old building. We found a gloom in one of the rooms that was very malnourished because it wasn't getting any sun. It was trapped in one of the rooms up top. We went to a different room, found a couple of magnemites, one very rusted and old, one very shiny and new, in the courtroom. Bentley had the idea to have Mortar attack them to try and power up his thunder punches even more if they were able to trigger anything there. Battle did not go well at all, just flailing aimlessly at these magnemite. But we found a board, saved the gloom. The gloom gave us 2 seeds or stones. I think they were seeds. We had thought that they were stones, or some people thought that they were stones, and they were not. But one turned out to be a poison kind of seed, and the other one was a leaf stone, I believe it was. So yeah, I guess 1 stone and 1 seed. Just vomited both of those up for us as a reward. So that was pretty fun. I had a really good time playing with Jordan in that dilapidated house, just kind of going around doing these mini quests. But anyway, we continued to explore, found one empty room that had gross chewing noises going on. There was like a spinnerack leg behind some bench or something that was in the room that was being munched on, and that was where we found a Paris. And Bentley went ahead and battled it, and it nearly ate Evinrude, which Drew at the time said was the natural prey of the Paris, so that was ill-advised to battle with Evinrude from the jump, but Mortar was still not himself after the encounter with the Source Stone, but battled Paris, tried to catch it, failed, ended up continuing to battle, knocked it out, caught Paris. Nipsey was added to the team. Very excited about that. It took a long time. I'm sure everybody else was very irritated that I didn't just catch one of the Sandshrew in the Ironbreaker mines and call it a day. But it worked out. I was picky. I bided my time, and I found a Pokemon who is now one of my favorite to play as, and made me really like Paris and Parasect in real life, which was not a Pokemon I ever really used in game. So it was cool. It worked out. So yeah, in addition to that, let's see what we got. We met Dennis, the old Chansey, who... Oh, so this must have been when Bentley got the gifts from his parents. The large box that contained the Pokeball. So we sent the Source Stone back to my parents because Bentley's mother works in like metallurgy and crafting and that type of thing. So she was able to make the Source Stone into a fancy Pokeball, which now houses Mortar and kind of keeps his craziness in check, if that makes sense. But they also sent an egg. And the egg we showed to Dennis, the old Chansey, the old male Chansey with his little goatee. If somebody can draw that as fan art, I would appreciate it. I don't know if somebody already has, but I love Dennis the Chansey. But anyway, did a little look-see-do at the egg and said that it would be part ground type and then part ghost type. So that gave a little inkling into what this egg would hatch into, but I'm glad that I also caught Paris because we had a gym challenge coming up, and I was not going to go in there with a baby straight out of an egg. That would have been a real bad idea. So we released the Gloom that Phoebe was doing some yoga with. I believe that's where we ended up on that session. So we move on to session 19, digging up some battles. This is where we had the relay race with the swarm of Digletts that just showed up out of nowhere. The relay race that we rolled like a whole set of dice to do racing, and I believe it was an exact tie down to the single digits with the first two links of the race, and it came down to William v. Diglett at the very end, and William pulled it out of the bag. Way to go, William. I love doing the relay races in D&D. It's just stupid fun that has no consequence. So it's a good time from the life and death situations we normally face. So we hung out with the Diglett, brought them back to the Pokemon Center. Milo ended up catching one, called him Derby, ended up getting him a little Derby cap, and wanted to train him into a mail-delivering Diglett because he's so quick and on the ground and can kind of tunnel his way and be out of harm's way. But we learned later that he's really good and really enjoys battling, so that kind of took over from there. So we go now to the Xantha Gyms. This was probably my favorite part of the campaign, at least from like a battle perspective for me, because my team was, barring Mortar, well, I guess even with Mortar, because he's hitting things that are going to resist his fire attacks, but pretty much my entire team is at a disadvantage in a fire gym. We have Nipsey, who's quad weak in reality. We have Evinrude, who's a bug, who's weak, and Mortar, who, like I said, can't really hit fire types. So this was a tough one. We made it through all of the initial trainer battles relatively okay. I think we kind of did a good job. And then the battle against Jax was just absolutely epic, wherein it came down to Mortar and Nipsey at the very end against his Typhlosion, his absolutely jacked Typhlosion. And Nipsey was hiding behind boulders, skittering out, throwing spores, missing. Mortar was trying to get some hits in. At the last second, I was like, all right, let's go balls to the wall. Let's send in Nipsey to flank this Typhlosion, try and get some hits in. It ended up knocking out Mortar, so it was Nipsey v Typhlosion, which a Paris against a Typhlosion is not the matchup that you want, really. So he fired off a Fire Blast, and as you saw in the gym session, if you watched it, if not, highly recommend going back and watching that, if not just for the gym battle. But Drew needed to roll a 4 or fewer on the die, 4 or less on the die, to miss, because it had such a gargantuan modifier that anything higher than a 4 would hit Nipsey and end the battle. Rolled exactly a 4, and I went bananas because that was like divine intervention that saved not only Nipsey in the gym battle, but probably Nipsey's life, because Nipsey's not taking a Fire Blast from a Typhlosion. So by some miracle, missed the Fire Blast on Nipsey, and Nipsey just nipped at the leg of the Typhlosion and knocked it out with his newly added poison from that seed we got from Gloom. I don't know how I did that still, but that was a lot of fun. What a crazy end to a battle. That was, I mean, it would have made a good anime episode if I say so myself. Anyway, moving on, we did some Xantha Gym rematches for the people who, I mean, no surprise, lost to Jax, who is an absolute beast. I believe Milo won, but decided to hand the badge back. I don't remember how that went exactly. But yeah, on to session 20, one last day in Xantha. It feels a lot less now that I'm recapping it. I guess it was a lot. It was probably 10 sessions we spent in this one tiny little town. But yeah, we kind of did some more exploring. We were told to look out for Jerry, the engineer in the mines, and Rachel, the journalist. Pendleton found his fetid pickles in a jar. That was disgusting. And this was where we went into the old grocery store and found all of the disgusting, probably part poison or plague type Rattatas that started to attack us. Boysenberry almost was in dire straits there. Had an epic battle in there with the Rattatas and managed to escape. Probably one of the better decisions we've made in this campaign was escaping that little area with all those Rattatas. That was a fun battle. It was just terrifying because they were giving us plague bites. But yeah, that's really all I remember from that one, sorry to say. Session 21, The Tale of Theodore. So yeah, this is again where we're getting into a lot of plot dump. With CJ, this was when we were making our way back to Alluvia, I want to say, and there was a giant storm brewing. Derby ended up digging us a little shelter. We were hunkered down for the storm. CJ and Bentley were awake, and this was when a Ghastly was blown into the shelter, and this Ghastly could speak, like English speak. So we met, I'm blocking the name, no. Remus, there it is. Ha. It's not terrible yet, the old brain, but it's not great. I'm sure I'm forgetting just a heinous amount of things. I've forgotten like every team capture that wasn't my own. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to focus just on my memory, which is already trash. But anyway, we met Remus. Remus told us that Xavier, the crazy conspiracy theorist vagrant guy, sees things as they are. So that was our first inkling that, I mean, we trusted a Ghastly for this, so that kind of tells you everything about our little crew, but told us that some shady things were going on and that Xavier maybe had a point. Remus was able to tell us more about Crash and how Crash was previously owned by a different trainer. CJ found Crash by a riverside, I think, fighting off a couple of kids, maybe. I don't really remember. But kind of just befriended Crash. It wasn't really like a traditional battle catch scenario. So this was the first time that we learned that he is not Crash, he's actually Theodore. And CJ made sure to call him a dork for having a funny name prior to meeting CJ. This was also the episode where we saw the Phanpy fight on the side of the road where CJ caught Slurp. This was also a bit of a shift in terms of strategy for Bentley, seeing a couple of Pokemon battle each other, and the one that was taking a more defensive, hold your ground kind of stance ended up winning, a la Slurp. So he's kind of tried to build a team and come up with strategies that are maybe more defensive thereafter. But yeah, that was pretty much the episode, was catching. It's funny, each time we catch a Pokemon, it's kind of like a footnote on the episode. But yeah, CJ caught Slurp. We met Remus. Remus gave us some intel about how the road was closed down because of Team Rocket had put up like a checkpoint, basically, where they were searching for people. We were like, are they searching for us because CJ's Pokemon bit some guy's leg off? Probably. So we're going to have to figure out a way to get around that checkpoint and into Alluvia now. Followed Remus on off the beaten path around to like a chain link fence that we were able to pass through. Found a bunch of cool Pokemon, because I believe at this point we were in the nature preserve, so we were seeing like Bulbasaurs and Hoot-Hoots and other cool things. We saw the pack of Poliwags that got beaten up by their Politoed overlord. I'm lucky that we didn't have more of a battle with Politoed. He seems no joke, but anyway, the Politoed seems to be the leader of that little area. And we made our way through the side door, so to speak, of Alluvia into the Stacks, which is like the poor underbelly of this giant affluent city where when capitalism reigns, it's the people who are very rich have everything, and the people who are very poor have nothing. So that was where we were in the Stacks. Session 22, sorry. Grime and Punishment. This is where we started off with Remus. Well, Remus had given CJ his disguise as an old man, because we learned that CJ was Team Rocket, and that they were probably trying to find and look for him. So we put a disguise, Remus put a disguise on CJ to make him look like a grotesque old man, which was hilarious. We met a tiny child in the Stacks, which Phoebe decided to ask him like 400 interview questions of this child who probably doesn't know really anything. The street rat Miles, as I wrote. But yeah, we were in the Stacks, just kind of wandering around, trying to keep a low profile now that we knew that Team Rocket was looking for us, and there were potentially spies all over Alluvia. Bad News Bears. We found I think Milo found a Grimer in the sewers, and it was friendly enough, so we were like, let's go through the sewers and try and use that as a way to stay out of sight. We went down into the sewers. Grimer led the way. We made our way behind the Pokemon Center to find Xavier, which is where he was typically hanging out with Mr. Viss. And then Xavier gave us all this info saying Deacon Halsey's essentially on the run. He's been like locked in his tower. Nobody's seen him. Ernie, the sketchy pizza shop owner, is in prison. He's talking about a shakedown. That's competition for Team Rocket potentially, or another nefarious gang selling Pokemon on the black market. They didn't like him, so he's probably in prison because he's competition, not because he's breaking the law, which is scary. We make our way back to Xavier's pretty awesome lair, where he has like a whole bunch of cameras and equipment to make sure that he's looking bird's eye view at Alluvia, pretty much everything. This is where we officially learn that his conspiracy theories are maybe more just facts, that he's got a better lay of the land than a lot of people do, and he knows what's going on behind the shady scenes in this city. And we find out that Xavier is a warg akin to Game of Thrones, where he can essentially put himself spiritually, I guess you would say, into his Mischievous and search for items that way. So he sent Mischievous off to the Bureau of Discovery, I think it was, and searched through the files there and found a file on the Tots. And we wanted to have that file, and he wouldn't let us see it. So this was pre CJ's I'm Team Rocket bomb drop, but we were kind of becoming a little bit suspicious at this point. We went to so after we escape, so this is all the alarms are going off. He's sent Mischievous into the Bureau of Discovery. He's stolen our file. He won't let us see the file. He lets us through this tunnel. He shuts off all the cameras that are there in the reserve that would have seen us escaping. So we were able to get out and away. We made our way along a river. Bentley, who had purchased a fishing rod in the previous episode, went fishing as a way to kind of blow off some steam after all of this craziness. This is where I caught in parentheses, or in quotations, sorry, a seal, aka it bit my lure and just pulled me into the river. And I was not letting go of that fishing rod because I paid, I think, $45 for it. So holding onto that, the gang heard me splash into the water. CJ sent Crash in after me. Crash attacked and knocked out the seal, which I was able to pull to shore and catch. So I added Rose to my team. And then from there, we had the battle with Noctowl that came in that wanted to really eat our bugs, I'm assuming. And really nobody had to do anything except for Violet. Violet was on an absolute tear, hitting everything, just basically 1v1'd this Noctowl, and then Violet evolved. It was pretty awesome, pretty cool moment. So session 23, this was where we had the CJ campfire. This is a Wild Boys past the CJ story. This is where we learn that he is named Crispin Jaspers. His parents are Team Rocket. He has 3 siblings who are all Team Rocket, and that is why he was where he was, living as a wild boy. He escaped the Team Rocket lifestyle. He wasn't about them stealing Pokemon and hurting people, doing generally nefarious things. Escaped. Gave us the whole rundown that he is, in fact, Team Rocket, even though he has escaped that life for now, but that would be why all of these people have been chasing after us, in addition to Crash biting somebody's leg off. We had a battle with a bunch of Pinecos, battled with the giant fortress, which Bentley was off fishing for. Bentley caught what would have been an absolutely massive fish, but it broke his line, and then he heard the explosion from the fortress and made his way back onto dry land to help out the rest of the team knock this thing out, which also had a tracker in it, which, again, we were sketched out about. I think we pulled the tracker out, put it back in, all sorts of hijinks ensue. We had various watches. CJ found the cool-looking Hoot Hoot, and Pendleton made him a little nest to hang out in. Bentley woke up, tried to catch the Hoot Hoot multiple times to no avail. Just ended up letting it live in its new nest after a bunch of failed catch attempts. Then at some point in the fray of all of this, Bentley did more fishing, caught Klaus the quillfish because he pulled it onto land and it was just flopping around and gasping for air, and it made him super nervous, so he just threw a great ball at it. And we added Sage, Phoebe's oddish, with buck teeth and a little leaf comb over. Love that guy. Anyways, session 24. Town on Water, Wadalonga. We made it to yet another town after escaping Alluvia, which seems to be overrun with spies and Team Rocket and who knows what the mayor's doing. We did a little background of what we knew about Wadalonga. Bentley and Milo talked about Remy LaRue, the professional battler who was from there, who had won the invitational tournaments that were like the big thing in the Laris region. We learned that Wadalonga experienced a huge flood. I think this is when Phoebe had her battle with the guy who has like 6 Magikarps. There's always one who has that. So that was interesting times. And then we met Remy at his restaurant, which Milo's father knew about. Gaining an ally, we think, but he had his Ludicolo. He had Maestro the Sneasel. Just cool times to be had. This was the first time that in a while, that we were able to kind of take a step back and feel like we were somewhat safe, I guess. But yeah, I don't really remember a whole lot more. We went and looked for food. Just kind of a little bit of a fun hijinks side episode. Nothing really dangerous happened. We just kind of had fun and ate a nice meal at Remy's, learned some more about Remy. Session 25, Swamp Meet. This was a super fun episode. Just going around meeting all of the zany characters of Wadalonga. We met the gardener, Lillian, who is blind, who has some tales of old to speak of, but doesn't really want to, I guess. She talks of the Rainmaker, which was this majestic blue and purple hound that came to town after or before the floods. I can't remember which. But that was what made her blind, she claims. So it was like this old legend. We met or heard about the collector who had been going around and asking people if he can have, I think he asked Remy if he can have Maestro, and Remy was like, no, he's not anybody's Pokemon, you can't have him. So we learned about that person, which I don't know that we've come into contact with since. It's pretty sketchy. Anyway, we met Damien and Charlie, the brothers who run the little cake shop, Krabby Cakes, I think it was. Damien, the little boy who's running it, and then Charlie, who might be a Pokemon, according to CJ, who was in the back cooking everything up. We met Captain Eddie Fry, the eccentric, don't call him a pirate, sold CJ some scuba gear because we had heard the legends of the Source Stone being at the bottom of the lake, so we wanted to go and explore that. Bentley buys some snorkel gear to go with CJ's scuba gear. We were really just gearing up for that. We just purchased a bunch of supplies, I guess, and then we went to the Rite of Learning with Dr. Lawson, I believe it was. So that was where the next session took place, where we all kind of branched off on our own. We all did the Rite of Learning, branched off to do our own things. Bentley, his arc was Rite of Learning, and then meeting Fisk, the eccentric fisherman who became kind of a mentor to Bentley. It was kind of a Dr. Cox, Dr. Dorian situation where Bentley just idolizes him and he can care less. But learned some of the ropes of fishing, gave him his tales of what he had done previously fishing, and kind of gained a little bit of confidence in that he didn't really feel like he officially caught Rose, because Rose kind of caught him, but at the same time, he's got a pretty decent track record in fishing up to that point, catching 2 team members from fishing. Yeah, I mean, just Fisk being Fisk. He was very intimidating. It was very fun to play that with Drew. Just the give and take of Bentley being kind of like starstruck by someone who's intimidating, but also taking the time to teach him stuff. But yeah, that was my tale of Wadalonga. I believe CJ met the Rainmaker, which is a lot more interesting, but I enjoyed my time with Fisk the Fisherman and kind of learning the ropes of that. Tricks of the trade, as it were. Session 27, The War in the Stones. So this was where CJ kind of info dumps everything that he learned at the Rite of Learning with Dr. Lawson, where he was able to accomplish a bunch of different tasks in training with Growl and others, and kind of got this huge info dump from Dr. Lawson. And we joke that Jordan is maybe the last person that we need to get a whole bunch of information, because he doesn't have the best way to recall pertinent information, we'll say that. But yeah, he gave us this whole info dump about the War of the Architects, how it started with Abras and Psychic types, and the dark sources, the stones north of Greengate. There was one for Psychic and one for Dark, we think. So that's kind of where the Prime Mind and the Kadabras and their whole army kind of hung out. There was a battle between Psychic Pokemon and Dark Pokemon, heavy losses. Then I believe the Pokemon joined forces with the Prime Mind, the Dark and Psychic. They went into hiding. They managed to reverse engineer Pokeballs to catch people, which we learned for the first time, which is absolutely terrifying. We don't know how many people from the war were just like captured by the Prime Mind and his army. I hope that doesn't happen to anybody. It'd be terrible. But yeah, we went back to Dr. Lawson to try and like verify a lot of this information that we got from CJ. Learned a little bit more about the Source Stone, I believe, and learned for the first time that like Mortar lost a piece of himself when he grabbed the Source Stone. So by having the Source Stone, I guess part of his Pokeball, it keeps him whole, so to speak. At least that's the way that I understood it. But yeah, that was really, that episode was just a huge info dump about Source Stones and how those work, and also just the war and how that started and went and might be happening again. The rumblings of yet another war after they kind of went their own ways and things died down. Might be they're gearing up for another battle that they don't plan on losing. But on the brighter side, we went and had another dinner at Remy's, and Little Buddy got a name. This was something that Milo had been angling toward, was having Little Buddy name himself, or at least provide what his name was. And didn't do it with Remus. He forgot, because Remus could have just been like, yeah, he says his name is this, but that didn't happen. So Maestro, the Sneasel, coined him Arjan, which means brother in Maestro's language. So that was a pretty cool moment. This was Little Buddy's mini arc where he becomes more of the little chef, as it were, kind of a Ratatouille vibe there. Yeah, so moving on, session 28, Lock Raiders. I believe this is where we rode on Eddie Fry's boat, the Kingdra's Crown, onto the River Green into Lake Lahana. A lot of names going on. Kudos and hat tip to Drew. But yeah, we met the APOM on Eddie Fry's ship, which is... I'm blocking the name again. Why do I do this? I'm going to block it. I'm blocking the name. I don't remember. But anyway, the APOM with the night vision goggles knows Pendleton. They're tight. We don't know from what at that point. But anyway, she's super cool. We had some hijinks on the boat. We sent Monty off to catch some food for himself. He caught a worm, which ended up being a piece of Tangela, which the whole gang pulled into the water and then had to rescue onto the boat, which Tangela was not too happy about. But Tangela had to hang out on the boat because he can't swim, so he was with us at that point. We made our way into the... Ona. There it is. It's in the notes. Ona, the APOM. Got it. Got it with my past brain. But we made our way to the middle of the lake. We learned that the expedition, including Tegan's parents, had been on an expedition to the lake with Eddie, which made us think like maybe they were looking for source stones. Maybe, kind of, sort of. Who knows? So this was where we got under... we explore Lake Lahana, myself and CJ with his scuba gear down below, Bentley with his snorkel gear up top. We're all tied together. And Klaus is down exploring, doing his derpy thing, finding baskets and such and bringing them back to the surface. But in the meantime, catches the attention of a giant feraligator that doesn't want Klaus anywhere near the areas that he is around, and ended up battling Crash and CJ. Knocked CJ unconscious. Crash and feraligator had an epic battle. Crash was consumed, literally, by the feraligator, eaten, and in the stomach found the water source stone, and was told by the feraligator that he is the guardian of the stone, and that Crash was the first Pokemon to damage him in however many years, and that his time is running out and he needs a successor to protect the stones, and calls on Crash. And Crash took up the call, so at some point Crash is going to have to be the defender of the water source stone. But in that process, Crash evolves into a more velociraptor-y, less chonky Croconaw. There it is. And that was pretty epic. So evolution for Sir Crash. The next session, 29, this is where egg number 1 hatches for Bentley. Hatches into a little baby cubone, and after checking the satchel or wicker basket, whatever it was that Klaus brought up, there was another egg in that. So Bentley had double prizes. One egg hatches, another one comes into his possession. This one blue, needing to be kept in a cold, damp environment, which Rose helped out with. So got a new egg in this episode. Monty and Tangela had a little row, little battle. Yeah, I think that was really about it. We kind of made our way back to Wadalonga at that point. Friend for a friend was Tangela capturing to do his Zubat. Milo gave him a Pokeball, which he was able to capture another Pokemon with, so we created a Pokemon trainer I'm running out of time here, so I'm gonna try and zip through the rest of these. But that was really the big thing from that was Tangela catching a Pokemon. Our Pokemon went on a bit of a side quest, met Goop, the Laris region muck, who knows? They found a whole bunch of berries. We went to Evander's Curiosity Shop on the side of the river, bought a whole bunch of goodies. Phoebe was able to buy Pontiki, the little Pichu, and Bentley, who had previously caught the biggest Magikarp in the history of Magikarp, I'm just going to say it, make it legend, traded that beastly Magikarp for Dial-Up, the Magnemite that he found in Xantha, who was in the like abandoned courthouse. Regretted not catching it the first time, ended up catching it, trading for it the second time. I'm curious how Dial-Up got to be in Evander's possession, but maybe we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Session... Oh, here we go. Gym battles. Wadalonga Gym. I don't have a ton of memories of this one. I know that at the end, after Bentley was able to beat Diego, mostly with Nipsey, again, just carrying the team, got the Tremor Badge. We are now certified to have 4 Pokemon instead of 3. That was a big here you go from Drew, which we all appreciated. Got a Bone Club from Diego for Baby Cubone. And Diego gave Bentley the knowledge and foresight that at some point his Cubone is going to feel the pull of the Amberite Sierras where they go to evolve. So at some point we might see that come to fruition where Manny, the Cubone, is going to want to go on a trek and a mission to evolve into maybe a Marowak. We don't really know at this point. So 31, damaged on delivery. After sending Monty off on one of his mailbird missions, Monty came back and was in dire straits. He was really beat up. Yeah, so Monty's really beat up. Milo finds a chip in one of his wings, which was like a little mini tracker, and then went to the Pidgey coop where he found another Pidgey in the coop had one too, and we had discovered that Pidgey had also previously been to Green Gate, which was where Monty's mission was way back, and that was kind of the moment where we realized that everything up until this point we've been tracked. Not good. So we ended up making a plan to leave Wadalonga and heading out on the dusty trail because Monty had been tracked with this tracking device, and everything that we had said and done and planned was potentially in the mind of whoever placed this tracker, which we have yet to learn. Session 32, left the swamp. This was where I believe we encountered the Drowsy for the first time with the sinister laughing, and as we tried to escape, we went not our separate ways, but as we went, we were separated, and some of us saw different things. We were in like a big field. CJ ended up getting attacked by the biggest bird of all the birds. We ended up reconnoitering, tracking ourselves down, made it through this giant cornfield maze to a barn in the middle of this giant field, and just observed this bird, which just shredded and attacked a whole horde of, we learned later, Kadabra. And we didn't know if they were tracking us, if they were working with the Drowsy, what the Drowsy was doing to us. It was giving us visions, some of them more grand than others, with Phoebe getting her vision of a bombed out town and her glasses strewn to the side and being knocked to the ground. All sorts of bad there. Session 33, Covered in Yolk, really speaks for itself. We had the Gleek Gluck battles. Also, Milo at the very beginning finds Wadsworth, the Psyduck. That was when we escaped from the barn with the Eevee. We learned the expedition Pokemon, Ona, Pendleton, Hoot, Koa, another Rockruff, and a Venonat. We learned that from the Hoot that had the recording device on its neck or foot, one of the two. But yeah, we had the battle with all the Gleeks, and then Gluck showed up. Mortar battled Gluck and lost, and when Bentley tried to call him back, Gluck said no, he's essentially mine now because I won. And that was not gonna fly, so we continued to battle. Wadsworth laid waste to like every egg with his mind, and Phoebe caught Gleek, the little execute. Session 34, the cheesy smell of Mayburn. Love it. We get to the new town of Mayburn. Outside there's a bunch of kakunas in the trees. CJ says he wants a bee drill. Mayburn, just a bunch of ramshackle houses and barns, kind of a unassuming place from what I understand. We were looking to find Spencer's parents, if I remember correctly. We found Audrey, who was the scientist who we had heard of, in Mayburn. Milo officially asks Psyduck if he wants to be on his team. He adds him to the team after a quick battle with Monty. Then Milo meets up with Dylan, the douche bird trainer who knows Milo's brother Toby, challenges him to a battle. He's just a total schmuck. We find out that Audrey and Rachel are in cahoots, sort of, kind of. Rachel was the journalist. We found her. We've met up with Dane, who was in charge of the Miltank farm. It's a fun character. And we learned that Robin owns the farms, and Robin is another one of these shady, off in the distance characters. We met Gerhardt, Spencer's father. He told us that he was a soldier in the War of the Architects. He told us that anyone who went off to Greengate didn't return, which is horrifying. And he was the first adult that really told us that he wouldn't be surprised if the war was not truly over, as we seem to think, with all the signs that are growing that there's nefarious stuff afoot. He seems to be the first adult who's like, no, yeah, that makes sense to me, which was a refreshing change of pace from what it is. Session 35, the Irresistible Padlock, or as I wrote in my notes, Barn Shadow Monster. This was a fun episode for me, just playing with Joel and kind of playing it straight, going around town, having fun like doubles battles and making the Klaus Bullet team up where Bullet's off the ground so Klaus can lay down his spikes. That was a fun time. So we were just really having the time of our lives while CJ and Phoebe brought a whole bunch of cakes to Dane to put him to sleep, and then they get there and he is asleep, and then Phoebe wakes him up to put him to sleep again. It was a whole thing. But the key crux of the episode is CJ opening the Irresistible Padlock by stealing the key from Dane and opening this shady door that we understand has trapped some ghost Pokemon for God knows how long. And in releasing this potentially Gengar but ghost Pokemon, CJ is gifted his black disc onto his hand that he cannot remove from his skin, that gives him ghostly powers that if he uses too much could be bad for him. not great. Session 36, Dial-Up gets dialed in. Yeah, he does. My goodness, this was where we had the explosion of Gerhardt's house leading off the last episode, and this is where Drew cashed in on Phoebe's vision from the Drowsies. Everything kind of went exactly as she envisioned it, just a bombed out building, chaos, her glasses strewn aside. Pontiki brought them back over to her, and when she turned around, there was Kaz. And so she had to have a battle. Pontiki, just Mighty Mouse as she is, socked the Kadabra in the jaw, ended up battling it out. We had a much larger battle when the rest of us caught up with the Kadabra that maybe was Kaz, maybe wasn't. I don't know. I guess it wasn't Kaz at this point, but had an epic battle. And Dial-Up, with the absorbed Thunderbolt power of Pontiki after firing off a Thunderbolt to no avail because Pontiki just absorbed it, fired off the most epic sonic boom of all sonic booms and just destroyed this Kadabra, leaving it reduced to nothing but feet and ash. Just an absolute beast. And this led to Tia's famous "we have its feet" moment, telling the police we have its feet of the thing that blew up the building. So thus Phoebe was brought into custody and interrogated. Remus was able to get into the interrogation room and get Phoebe out, disguising her as a cop. Got her out of custody, which we of course were not too thrilled about. From there, we made our way out of town. Milo again was not thrilled with the things that had happened. We did find out that Gerhardt lived. He was not at home when it exploded, thankfully. And at that point we found Meowth and discovered that Pendleton was gone, as was Ona and the Hoot Hoot. So that was where we had the split from that gang of fun folk. We found the Meowth, which is doing his thing. CJ was training Chicky Baby, who I neglected to say that he got on his team because I think it happened in the split Wadalonga sessions when he was exploring the swamp. But yeah, he was doing all sorts of funny tricks and pranks, and CJ just randomly went ahead and caught it, so good for him. Session 37, Champion of the Fight Pits. We went to the Fight Pits in the quarry of, I don't remember what the town is. But anyway, we went down and saw some epic fight pits with Tyranitar and the Primal Octillery, all sorts of crazy stuff going on. I think this was also where we met Sudowoodo for the first time. Session 38, Snakes in the Grass. This was where we had the battle with the trio of Ekans, one that was more traditional purple, another one that was green coloration, and another that was the black coloration. Bentley tried his hardest to catch one, no avail, couldn't do it, but CJ could, and he caught Riot, the black dark type Ekans that spread all of this creepy tar that was sapping energy from everything that we had to figure out how to heal. Session 39, the Siege of Hillmouth. So as the last episode ended, there was a giant couple of blimps, I think, of Team Rocket above Hillmouth. And we just had to have an epic battle, and it was. And you should watch it, because I don't remember all the idiosyncrasies of it, but it was a lot of fun. And kudos again to Drew for running that, because that was just an epic montage of fighting. Session 40, Snubble picks a side. CJ caught Snubble, Bark, after he did a whole bunch of barking as we made our way out of Hillmouth after the siege. Making our way to Falchester, We learn more about Evie's background from Wadsworth. That was really sad. Session 41. Shipping secrets. We met Macadistema, as Phoebe calls it, Moxieterna, for the first time after opening that shipping crate, or rather sending Manny through the shipping crate and figuring out that there's some nefarious force that's shipping a bunch of stolen goods and potentially stolen Pokemon. Bentley went fishing in the ocean for the first time, caught a Staryu that Phoebe caught, added to her team, who's now like kind of sort of Bentley's rival, which is fun. Session 42 was the rescue mission. So at the end of session 41, CJ and Milo went to ask folks about the shipping crates, which they shouldn't have done, and they were apprehended by this gang of pirates whose name I am of course am blocking. They have the anchor symbol, the privateers. There it is, the privateers. So they were brought onto the boat. Bentley and Phoebe had to go in after them and try and save them. They boarded the boat with Moxieterna, and battles ensued as everybody escaped, and Mox was speared multiple times with harpoons. We escaped, leaving Mox to defend our honor, I guess, and let us get away unscathed, although it is our understanding that they either captured a very injured Mox or killed Mox, which is awful. And on the boats, we were followed by a bunch of privateer boats, and this was where Evinrude got speared and pulled into the boats. Bentley, just in a state of shock, didn't want to put anybody else at risk. Milo's like, screw that, we're saving your Pokemon, turns the boat around. Epic battle at sea. Monty is able to grab Evinrude's Pokeball and bring him back, albeit very injured. And then we make our way into the wilds, where we find Farfetch'd and his gang, make our way through. Manny went after some crabbies that he, and by he I mean Shadow, just utterly destroyed, which caused Milo a lot of psychological harm after the fact. Met the privateer on the boat, who is deceased, died. We gave him a proper burial after chucking the boat into the trees. I think that was how that went. That was not good. And Gleek did the burial danceroo, which we think brought back a ghost in the form of Desmond, who is now living in CJ's hand as his like ghost servant buddy friend thing. Anyway, continuing on through the forest, we're at like session 45. We meet Atticus, the twin, or so we thought, Talos, who are actually clones of one another. We met the Tropius, and the Tropius with the Source Stone, and the Smeargle that had been basically sabotaging the privateers' plans to release all of the Pokemon. And that was kind of our theory, was that there were a lot of Pokemon from a different region in this forest because they're the ones that had been freed by this Smeargle. Session 47 was the mime battle, where we got to what we thought was the nature preserve, and it wasn't, and there was the Nidoking that had escaped that we had to save from these sketchy foot soldiers, essentially, who turned out to be Dittos. and compiled a plan to release these Pokemon that have been captured by Mr. Mime, who we had seen by this point can kill people with finger guns, which is horrific, which he did to Mortar in the following episode. Grabbed him, held him at finger point, and unfortunately Manny's Bone Club attack to try and knock Mr. Mime off of that plan missed the first go and only hit on the follow-up, so Mortar was killed. Took Manny's shadow to bring him back. He was brought back and evolved, albeit into a much different looking Magmar than people are used to. He's now fire and ghost type. Collectively, we were able to free, I think, all of the Pokemon and all of the Dittos that just wanted to be away. Milo found a Girafarig at some point that he's now using as a mount, which is pretty cool. We made our way into Stanley's cabin after the mime fight that left a Lickitung deceased. Repress that. That was terrifying. We had the exorcism of Mortar in session 50, I think it was. Oh, I totally neglected to remember that Crash had been sent away because CJ tried to catch Crash, and that was what sent him to the mime encampment. And we had originally said, let's go the opposite direction back to where the privateers were, and if we had done that, Crash probably would not have survived. So I'm really glad we didn't do that. Anyway, exorcism of Mortar was intense. We went to the dig site in Nutri. Dug up some sweet fossils, learned about fossils, kind of how or how not they are brought back. We learned that the scientists were able to bring back an Aerodactyl once, but that was the only successful time that they had done that. Bentley met, I think it was a Togetic, a healer in the forest that was able to heal Evinrude, who had his wings splinted by the Smeargle previously, but the healer was able to like full-blown heal Evinrude after his whole debacle. Some point along the line, Drip hatched, so this was a ways ago. He hatched in the ocean or thereabouts, I believe, when we were back in not Falchester. I forget the one that's on the beach, but hatched into a baby Squirtle named Drip. And what else we got? We saw the Duskull that was stealing memories, the Nuzleaf in the nature preserve. Had another run-in with Tangela, who's now just a full-blown poison-type trainer, has a bunch of Pokemon now. Yeah, and so exploring around Nutri, this is where Bentley first experiences his ghostly happenings, where he's sent to this like upside-down Shadow Realm place that he doesn't know how or why he's going there, but he continues to be sent there. All of his buddies think he's nuts. They're trying to figure out how they can help him. We make the decision to go to the school up north to try and find these ghost experts that we've heard about that can maybe give some kind of guidance to Bentley's visions, because he was sent into the Shadow Realm and attacked by Kaz, who then was brought back into the real world and attacked by everybody, and maybe was killed, but we doubt it. So anyway, we go to the school where we're trying to figure out what's going wrong with Bentley. He is sent into the Shadow Realm and trapped there, at which point there is a second Bentley that takes over his body and is now hanging out with CJ and Phoebe in the school. They go and find Kaya, who's this ghostly entity teacher at the school, who kind of sort of takes CJ under her wing, teaching him the ins and outs of the ghostliness, but doesn't explicitly tell him how to get to the Shadow Realm. But thankfully, CJ figures it out, gets there, saves Bentley, brings him back, and then there's two Bentleys. The fake Bentley and the real Bentley. That was really fun to play. I had fun watching Jordan freak out when I was just talking to myself. But thankfully, they dispatched of the evil Bentley, and Milo decided to attack Kaya with the support from Phoebe. So they attacked Kaya. Kaya brings us into the Ghost Realm all at once, and we're having to fight a battle against all of them. CJ gains yet more ghost powers, has a little row with Milo because he's upset that he killed Kaya. He gets a really bad feeling when Kaya is killed, and now Kaya, I guess, also lives in CJ's hand, but maybe gave him more powers, but maybe also made him less sane, who knows. From there, we escape the Ghost Realm. We get split up again. Bentley and Phoebe are taking shelter in like an ice cave that they go down to the very end of and find what maybe was the ice stone and the guardian of the ice stone in a giant cloister. We were just kind of hanging out in there for shelter and got frozen by a bunch of shelter. And this was where Nubster had his epic face-off with the cloister and evolved. I didn't get to see it because I was frozen solid, but I'm sure it was awesome. We made our way back to town where the band of Sneasels had been attacking. CJ caught one of them, named it Winter, I believe. We wanted to get out of Dodge from that town with the school because we effectively murdered a teacher at the school, if that makes sense. Made our way back down south after Milo's gang of Pokemon came back from their mail journey, mostly beat up, no one worse than Violet, who really took the brunt of it. Needed to get her to a Pokemon Center, rush down south. I believe Milo and CJ were attacked by another band of Sneasel that did a ton of damage. They're real scary in groups. But Milo gets his Pokemon safely to the Pokemon Center. The rest of us follow now with giant Piloswine Nubster. We make our way back to the Pokemon Center. And as Milo is in the room caring for Violet, who is on all sorts of machines and making sure that she doesn't die because she went through the ringer on that journey, we start to hear the telltale tune of a Jack-in-the-Box. And said Jack-in-the-Box is sitting in the hallway of the Pokemon Center hospital wing. And it just says, showtime. Yeah. So that's where we left off. Sorry that I had to kind of rush through the last few sessions. I was maybe being a little too long-winded at the beginning, but it's coming up on my work hours here. I've been at this for a while, so I'm sure I forgot just a ton of stuff. But that's the beauty of being able to watch it. You can go back and you can find a whole bunch of details that you maybe didn't even write in your notes because you didn't think it was important at the time, but actually it's a giant plot point that you missed. But anyway, maybe we will be re-upping the Tots campaign soon, maybe? Huh? A little bit of a teaser for you, but anyway, nice to virtually see you all again. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings through all of this. Yeah. All right. Well, recapped as poorly as possible.